I am Zara Altair, and this is Mystery Monday, where we chat about mystery writing. And I have some really great news today for mystery writers, and that is that The Guardian announced that sales of crime fiction, what mysteries are called in the UK, sales of crime fiction have outpaced the literary genre. That's pretty exciting for mystery writers. So that's today's first news, and I'll put a link to the article in the show notes after the show. If you want to read the whole article, it's pretty exciting. So today I want to talk about starting your mystery. This can be a big problem for beginning writers. There's lots of traps about beginning your story. And really what readers want in your story is they want those certain elements that tell them, one, it's a mystery and they meet the protagonist. They want that really soon. So in the 19th century, it was okay to have long introductory scenic descriptions like Thomas Hardy and Return of the Native to draw the reader into the scene. But the modern preference, readers want to get to know the genre, the protagonist, and the story right away. So new authors can particularly struggle with the required story elements. So you don't need to put a description of your protagonist, your sleuth, your detective, right at the beginning. Get them into the action. And when you're starting your story, you're starting with their everyday life. So give them a sense of that. What are they doing? What are they saying? Who are they interacting with? And especially how that interaction ties into this to the story that's going to unfold. So there's certain pitfalls that can happen when you're writing those first few pages, and you need to get them into the story. Let's see, I had a note here. Literary agent Peter Miller described his pet peeve in opening pages. I enjoy when a writer can find a balance between exposition and mystery. Too much accounting always ruins the mystery of a novel, and the unknown is what propels us to read further. And that's especially true in mysteries. It's like your readers want to go right alongside your detective to discover and evaluate the clues. So you want to get right to the story. You want to showcase your detective skills. In many police procedurals, it'll start out with an everyday event, which is that detective, bringing in a suspect or doing something else that isn't particularly related to that case, but it's that detective's everyday life, if that makes sense. So other pitfalls that can happen at the beginning is the tone of the story can differ from the genre. So you want to make sure that you're starting out with what your genre readers expect. You want to reassure them that the genre you promised is what's in the story. So right away, it has to feel like a mystery. Let's see. So, and then, as I mentioned before, you really want to minimize descriptive details at the beginning. So no laundry lists of features of the protagonist or the setting. You can sprinkle those details in later um, as your detective goes about his everyday life and finds the corpse, all of those things. But don't start, gosh, at least for the first 3 pages. You don't want any of those long lists of details. They can all come in later. So it's kind of a trick that some new writers especially use is giving some gratuitous hook. Like, it's often a sex scene, which is like, oh, whoa, sex scene, but it doesn't have anything to do with the story. It's just there to, get them in, bang, to the story. Well, that doesn't work in the long run because it doesn't have anything to do with the story. It brought them in on the first page, but it missed some of the other things like telling the reader that yes, they're in the right genre. It is a mystery. So you want to make sure about that. And also um, giving backstory or opening with a dream or any of those things, those are kind of indications that you're a new writer. So backstory you want to save for much, much later, and if at all possible, sprinkle the elements of backstory into conversations with other people, into your protagonist's thoughts as he's doing something. But starting with backstory is totally unnecessary. I would save it for at least a quarter of the way into your story. First, you want to get your reader into that story and get them excited about the mystery that is unfolding and the discovery of the body and the problems it presents for your detective. So those are really main things. And then, of course, the old um, adjectives and adverbs. Use strong verbs. They work much better than adverbs. And adjectives, keep them at a minimum. So no matter how many books you read or formulas you consider for writing a story, at the beginning, engage your reader. And that doesn't mean with tricks, like I mentioned earlier, with sex scenes or something like that. Reassure them that the story you promised feels like the genre they want. And get your protagonist into action right away. Right away. And deliver a dilemma. See if you can get that dilemma on the first page. That keeps your readers reading. That's it. Readers are our lifeblood, so you want to make them happy. And with this genre, they want a mystery, and so you need to start there. Okay, alright, so thanks everybody. Then once again, this is Zara Altair, and this is Mystery Monday. So I have a couple of questions here that I received. Let's see, the first one is, I love writing. I just finished my first mystery. Whoa, congratulations. And I was totally stoked until 2 readers told me it was too long. The final word count is 130,000 words. Well, yeah, that's long. That's especially long for a mystery. Sometimes you can get away with that with fantasy epics and things, but unless you're a very powerful writer, 130,000 words is long. That is a long read. So let's take a look at, what the word count is for crime, mystery, thrillers. Um, they all have suspense, and any book that falls into this category needs to be a page turner. Too many words, and you lose your audience. And too few, and they might feel like they missed something. So there are reader expectations, and I know I talk about readers a lot because that's who reads your books, and um, that's how you generate interest. So, um, generally speaking, for mystery, crime, suspense, the word count is somewhere between 70,000 and 90,000 words. And it's a comfortable range. So anywhere in there, a little bit under, sometimes for cozy mysteries, um, a little bit over can work, but 40,000 words over 90,000 as the outside is a lot. So I haven't read your story, so I don't know exactly how you can trim it down, but you might want to go through first and look for descriptions that are too long, that are slowing down the story and not adding to the suspense. You may want to look at scenes where characters talk about stuff, but the action doesn't really move forward a lot. You may want to take elements of those scenes and put them in another scene, but pretty much eliminate that scene. And you may want to do just what we were talking about earlier, adverbs and adjectives. You may want to do a read through of your story to see if you're using a lot of those words that are theoretically unnecessary. One of the things that can help you with this is using an editing software like Pro Writing Aid or LitCrit, where you can look at a number of factors like the readability and the use. I can't say this right. The overuse of certain words, so it'll catch some of those things for you, so you can trim down your story. You may also want to look at subplots because they may be taking up too much of the story. Subplots are usually there to highlight and echo what's going on in the main story. So you might want to take a look at that. If you have a subplot that's going off on its own course, you may want to rein it in, cut back some scenes, even cut out some scenes from your subplot so that the main story of the detective determining who committed the crime is the very focal point of your story. Anyway, thank you. That's a great question. And it's easy to get carried away when you're writing. But first of all, congratulations on finishing your novel. It's a very great accomplishment. And now is time for editing and fine tuning. And be grateful that your readers gave you that feedback. So thank you so much for asking the question. Okay, here's another question about first mystery. I'm writing a first mystery with a cop as the detective. Where do I get the procedural and forensic details? I've no experience with the world of law enforcement. Well, that's a really good question, and it's a very wise question, because people who do know the details, if you get it wrong, they're going to consider you an amateur. So it's a fine balance, and the research is tough. So one of the first things you can do is investigate your local law enforcement agency and see if there's someone who can work with you to answer your questions and give you more details. I know a lot of law enforcement agencies have things like ride-alongs where you can go out and ride in the car and experience what it's like to be out and about as a law enforcement officer. Um, but keep in mind that law enforcement officers are really busy. They work really hard, and it may be difficult to find an individual who can give you that much attention. Um, some law enforcement agencies, like local police agencies or the sheriff's department, uh, can have community outreach division. So the people there are trained in dealing with the public. And if you contact someone on the community outreach, um, they can often answer questions for you, or they can put you in touch with someone in the department who can answer the question for you. It's you need to be very aware of their time when you're asking questions. If you do find someone, you're really, really blessed. So uh, it's hard. On the other hand, if you're writing about uh, the FBI actually has a program and procedures for writers who need details. And I can put the link to that in the show notes for today as well. And they will give you a number of things. Once you apply and you go through a screening. I'm trying to remember how long it took me, maybe a week, something like that. It wasn't long. So they can give you guidance on content regarding their investigations, their procedures, their structure, and their history. So they'll provide you with a wealth of information. Um, they can also provide information on costumes, props, scenery, and weapons. So when you want to get the details right, they're really a great source of information. They can even do fact checks for you if you need that. They can give you a liaison with a field office if you need that, and location shots. That's for film, and also for film access to facilities for filming scenes. So they really are open to the creative community, which I think is quite wonderful. I experienced this firsthand last year researching a novel I was ghostwriting, and I found the special agents really helpful answering questions. If they didn't know the answer, they got back to me with the answer. So I wish you luck in finding the right person in your local law enforcement agency to help you get those details right. And you're absolutely correct. Um, those procedures and details are really important and give a lot of verisimilitude to your story. So that's a really good thinking about where you want to go in your writing process. And then one other place, if you kind of get stalled or stonewalled, is that um, the University of Strathclyde in Scotland has a free online course called Forensics, and I will leave the link to that in the show notes as well. It goes for a number of weeks, and the education is through videos and articles, and there's a community of people who are taking the course. And you're encouraged to ask questions there, and it's great for writers in that regard that you can go in and ask questions. And you'll also learn a great deal about the details and the science of forensic investigation, which is what happens um, from the science point of view on the evidence that is at the scene. So that was also a really great question. Okay, that is it. I'm not seeing any more questions today. So thank you once again. I'm here every Monday on Mystery Monday, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much.